We've had such an awesome International Women's Week and Women's Day and Employee Appreciation Week and all of that good stuff. So welcome, 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 welcome. I wonder, do they have Marriage Week, Marriage Appreciation Week? We're gonna have to see about that, right? We're gonna have to see about that. But welcome, welcome, welcome to another night of prayer for marriages. I am your host, Marcia Baker. In my kingdom, I walk in my kingdom gift as an evangelist in the kingdom. And sometimes because I have a doctorate in psychology, they call me Dr. Marcia. So, Dr. Evangelist or Evangelist Doctor. But I am Marcia Baker, your host, and along with me is my partner in teaching. And we are teaching today Evangelist Nikki McKenzie. Okay, listen, let me tell y'all something. Last week's topic was really good for me. I don't know about anybody else, right? Are you putting your spousal, are you putting religious duty before your spouse? And a lot of times we are. Most times, most people they do that. And I think last week Evangelist Nikki mentioned, are we substituting ministry for intimacy, right? Because we try to run away from that. But today we're going to talk more on, because we've given you a lot of stuff about how we're supposed to really make sure that we are putting our spouses first, right? And we know while religious duties are important, our marriage life is most important, because marriage is our first ministry. Listen, marriage is a divine assignment, and not too many people can fulfill or complete that assignment. So today we just want to give you some nuggets on how to make sure that you're not putting your religious duties. Now, I want y'all to listen carefully. We're not saying God, because we know God is first. He's the head, right? But we're saying your duties at church. If you're a minister, if you're a deacon, whatever capacity you serve in ministry, are you putting that before your spouse, right? Are you putting your role in the kingdom above your spouse? And sometimes when that happens, persons feel neglected, they feel unappreciated, and especially I know some persons who are married to unbelievers, and persons who are not of the same faith as you, they feel some kind of way when you neglect them and you put church duties before them. I'm saying religious duties, but we're saying church. But it's church, religion, whatever, whether you attend the mosque, whether you attend the church, the synagogue, the Jehovah Witness hall. But let me tell y'all something. We need to make sure in all that we're doing for the Lord, for God, however you call him, address him, Yahweh, Yeshua, Allah, Buddha, you make sure you're not putting that duty before the person that you said I do with. All right. So we're here this week, and we're going to give you some tips on how to make sure that you're putting your spouse first, because it's nothing like even not putting your spouse first. Church, somebody call from church, you're taking a call, and you and your wife watch your husband, your spouse watching a movie, or you're having dinner, you have to interrupt dinner to go take a phone call. Listen, I say, if it's life and death, call the ambulance, let them come, right? So we're going to be hitting on that today, right? And so I just appreciate all of y'all. Thank you for those of us that are joining on YouTube. Those of you that are joining on Facebook, welcome, 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 and good evening. Do us a favor, go ahead and share this broadcast out to somebody. I know somebody that's gonna need this topic on tonight. So we just want to say, go ahead and share, 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 share. All right, Evangelist Nikki is going to come in and introduce herself, and we're going to hit the topic, and we're just going to flow tonight. All right, Evangelist Nikki.
Yes, good to be back. Greeting, my dear mentor, tutelage, teacher, visionary. This lady wears so many hats, and she does it gracefully. If you get to know her on a personal level, this is who she is: jolly, always upbeat, always ready to help, Glory to God. So I love this woman of God, and I thank God when she decided to step out for us, right? Because she does what a lot of us wanted to do, but did not have the strength to do it. And I thank God that she answered the call, so you and I can be here this afternoon, catching the replay wherever you are listening and tuning from. There is something for everyone that partake, even if you're just a silent listener, right? There is
Mhm.
something for you to take to go share with someone else. But we do solicit your comment, your feedback. It does help us, because we want to hear from you, because we're not just doing it for us, right? We want to know how is it impacting you? What changes have you seen? And like you said, everything that we shared on this platform, right? It's not for your spouse who's not here. If you're here, it is for you.
It's for
Right?
you.
We're not saying go beat up your spouse, demand them and said, well, Mercy Baker Ministry said this and prayer for marriage, and this is what you're not doing. This is why you spend so many time in church, right? This is why you avoiding me. No, no, no. It's for you to examine yourself and see how we can be better for our spouse. Because when we are better, it's easy for us to give our best to others.
Mhm.
But if
Mhm.
we're not our best, we're not going to give our best to others, right? So it starts with us. And this is something that we heard people say, and when we come in Christendom, when we have an encounter with God, I said, this would never be my relationship, but you find yourself there where you're overexerting yourself in church duty, where you feel that if you said no to someone in church, you're saying no to God, right? And
Mhm.
you become a slave to duties that does not fulfill you when your home life, which is your first ministry, get punished,
Mhm.
right? So we all have been there. We all have been there, and we wanted to rewrite the wrong because we all messed up at times because we don't know how to say no,
Mhm.
right? And
Right.
no doesn't mean that they're not gonna pick you again for another duty. Because some people feel like, well, if I don't raise my hand next time, they're not gonna come to me, right? That's not what we're saying. We're saying balance. You have to find a balance in your marriage and your church duties, and home is your first ministry. We
That's
talked a
it.
lot last week of some of the causes and stuff, and we're gonna delve into a bit more solution and stuff this week that we all can do. Because, like I said, I'll be the first one to tell you when I started examining myself, when I started even researching this, right? I could pinpoint at times. I was like, oh, wow. That's why at that time I feel like that. That's how it feel like there's a tension, right? You
Mhm.
ever be, like sometimes I'll be in the house with my spouse and I'm like, are you upset about something? It's like, is it unspoken tension that's
Mhm.
in the here that you can cut with a knife and you examine
Mhm.
yourself like, what could be that cause?
Right.
Right? But we don't have the wits or the knowledge to address it in a way that's not going to cause a distance. So that's how we're helping you. These are ways you can have this conversation. And, if you find yourself saying, your spouse is spending more time in church,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
Evangelist said, we have plans. You cancel for church duty. We have in dinner time, Netflix and chill time. And oh, it's my pastor calling. Well, he just called me and asked me if I could get some stuff to bring down to the church because he's having a meeting. He doesn't have snack or whatnot. Right? And as evangelist, if it's an emergency and somebody calling you from church, honey, they dialing the wrong number in the first place. Dial Jesus and then call 911 or vice versa. But those are the emergency numbers that we need to
That's
be
it.
calling in an emergency, right? So, as Evangelist said, what we're saying today, we're not saying putting your spouse ahead of God. We're not saying putting your pastor ahead of God. We're not saying putting, your duties ahead of what we're saying. We know God is ahead. But what we want you to do in what you're doing, there has to be a balance, and your marriage must be your first ministry. So
Mhm.
that's what we're delving in part two this week. And I know if you did not catch first part one last week, we implore you to this broadcast, go and listen to it. Please go and listen to it. Listen to it with a friend. Have a watch party or something with your friends, right? And you guys
Mhm.
can discuss it and also give us some tips and pointers of how you overcome when
Right.
this was your situation. Share with us. We want to hear from you. Right,
You know,
Evangelist?
it's true. Let me tell you something. Someone asked me a question that says, "Is marriage more important than ministry?" Right now, it is more important to preserve your marriage, preserve and protect your marriage than to preserve and protect ministry. Ministry is going to be there because guess what? How are you going to preserve ministry and then your marriage fail? So how are you going to tell people now? Because remember, God is about love and family, right? So if you can't preserve your family, how are you going to preserve and protect ministry? Right? How are you going to preserve the flock? How are you going to protect the flock if you're not protecting the home front? How are you going to preserve the flock if you're not preserving on the home front? So it goes hand in hand. First in the natural, then in the spirit. So it's not that, your marriage is important. Your marriage is important. When I tell you, yes, your ministry is important. Now, I don't want, listen, I want you to hear us and hear us clear. We're not saying God. We're not saying church. We're saying the duties of ministry. So I don't want persons to inbox me and say, but that's church and church is first. Absolutely not. Not. Right? Your family is first. It's God, family, then your loved ones, kids, and church is like fourth or fifth. God is first, right? And so some persons cannot differentiate between God and ministry. They're two different entities, right? Because when you have your own personal relationship with God, right, you might not necessarily have a ministry, but you have a personal relationship with God. And just like you're married. So we our goal is to preserve and protect our marriages so that when we go into the hedges and the highway and we're compelling family to come. Listen, I get so many questions each week from persons who are married to unbelievers and persons who are like unbelievers that are married that want to become part of a religious organization, and they're saying, but my spouse. I said, listen, the same way you're communicating to me about wanting to be a part of a religious organization, you can ask your spouse. Have the conversation with your spouse. I know sometimes it's a hard conversation, but hard conversations are needed to be had because you have to discuss certain things. And religion is something that can make or break a marriage because one person believe another thing, the other person believe another thing. That's why you have to come into agreement, right? Come into agreement about, and these things should be discussed before you say I do, right? Before you say I do, you have to come into agreement as to what you're going to do, right? Even if you're dating and you say, you know what, I don't want to date someone if they're not of my religion, of my beliefs. That's fine. And if that's your deal breaker, then that's your deal breaker. You've got to know what you can handle because religion is such a personal thing, right? And we don't want to, because listen, like, say for instance, if I wasn't married, before I was married, I was busy in my church. So I knew that I had to have somebody in the church because I could not have somebody outside of the church because they would not understand the busy schedule. I'm traveling here, traveling there, have to do this, have to do that. I'm busy. So if I'm not putting them first, they're gonna feel left out. So I had to be with somebody who was as busy as me in ministry and understood ministry so that I wasn't putting them first. Now, my husband pastors, right? And he gets a ton of phone calls. When I say a ton of phone calls, but when it's our time, phone gets shuts down. Because I needs my time. A girl needs her time, honey. Listen, I need my time, right? And so while both are important, your marriage is important. You got to preserve and protect your marriage. All right. Go ahead with your point, Evangelist Nikki.
And you said it right, and that's a valid question. I can understand the mindset where that is coming from. Is marriage more important than ministry? And when you are in Christ, not in religion, but in
Mm-hmm.
relationship, we'll understand that our first ministry is home.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said earlier, how are we busy protecting what's out there, but what's at home, which is our first priority, is left defenseless. The wall is broken down. So
Mm-hmm.
now instead of we trying to focus on ministry, we're calling prayer meeting to pray for my house that is falling apart.
Mm-mm.
I'm calling prayer meeting, creating prayer point because my marriage is falling apart, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we so OD'd on ministry that we don't find that balance. Because a lot of people, they say, this is my calling. And that's true. A lot of us are called to ministry. However, God give us wisdom, right? You have to set boundaries, you have to set prioritization, and important, like Yvonne just said, we have to have those hard conversations with our spouse, right? Because a lot of us was called to ministry, and a lot of us run from it, and we were doing the world.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So when
mm-hmm.
we come to ministry before our spouse, now we expect them to caught up and just fit in right in.
No.
We have to give them grace, right? And give them time to for God to impress on their heart to get on your level eventually, right? But we can't say, well, it's because you're an unbeliever now. If you're married to an unbeliever, they know God, but they don't have a relationship. So, like Evangelist said, she knew from Jump Street that she have to have somebody in ministry. A lot of time we said we want somebody in ministry, but because the person that we with and we met that we both were in the not in ministry, and now you get in ministry. Now you started calling them all different sort of name, started using ministry now as a coping mechanism, right? Or a punishment, so to speak, an avoidance. A lot of people use church as avoidance from their relationship to
Mm-hmm.
deal with what is at home and think that it's gonna you're gonna pray it away and you're
Right.
gonna weep it away, right? And you're
Mm-hmm.
gonna shama it away. But when you go home, the problem is still there.
Still
And
there.
then frustrated and burned out because now you're calling 6 o'clock morning prayer, you're calling midday prayer, you're calling 9 p.m. prayer, you're calling midnight watch, right? And you're trying to pray away the issues that going on at home, and all it is talk with your spouse,
Talk
is
to your
just have that
spouse.
conversation with your spouse. And it's also when you have those conversations before you get married, is also to take inventory while you're in marriage, because things change, people grow, people priorities change,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we might start it off one way, but when we get into relationship now, like when my spouse met me, I was like, if there's 8 day in church, I'm there. I was that person because at that time my pastor was my head. I wasn't married. So obviously, when you're single, your pastor is your head. So you try to exert yourself more in ministry, right? Because you have the bandwidth then to do it. Once you get married, now your pastor is no longer your head. Your duties now is to your first ministry at home,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so
Mm-hmm.
the priority after training, you have to have those conversations with your leaders in church. If you already have role that you're responsible for, have those conversations. Have
Yes.
those conversations with your spouse and also delegate. You know what I mean? If you were called, like Evangelist said last week, if you're doing children church, trying to train up someone else to fit in like on a Sunday where you could take a Sunday off and it doesn't fall apart, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good leaders equip the people around them so when they're not available, it doesn't burn down. And that's
Exactly.
why you have to use wisdom that, oh, it's my department, and you hold it with a tight fist, right? Or they're depending on me. If I miss, everything is gonna fall apart. That's not smart leadership in the kingdom of God.
No.
We're called to build up each other in the faith. I mean, think about what Paul had to do in the epistle, right? He had to equip because he can't be all things to all people in a different diaspora, different
Mm-hmm.
time,
That's
right?
right.
So he have
Mm-hmm.
to make sure he train up people. So when you're coming to relationship now you're married, you're no longer single, you have to make sure that you're equipping people around you for whatever duties that you are responsible to. You must always have somebody that can back you up when you're not there, right? So when you can take some vacation time or you can take some time off, even if just your spouse wanted to just have a chill day, you know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? And like we said, we're not saying taking time off from God, we're not
Right.
taking time from our faith, we're talking about the duties, right?
Right.
If you're responsible to be a usher, you're responsible for children church, you're responsible for, opening prayer, right? Train up people around you so you can find that balance with your home life and your church life, where you're not beating down your spouse and said, well, you're a pastor, you preach every Sunday, why can't you let somebody else preach in the church? We shouldn't have to be having that conversation like that. We should use wisdom and said, you know what, who's the next in line? Who have you, mentoring and equipping? Give them a chance. You should not only have one pastor preaching every Sunday and he have a wife and children and he's opening church. He's doing funeral. He's doing wedding, right? He's doing prayer service. He's
Mm-hmm.
everything. What energy do you gonna bring home? There is
None.
no balance there, and that's not godly, right? Because even God need a rest day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
we have to use wisdom that the duties, yes, we understand how some people upbringing is all about the religion. It's all about religion. And what we're
Mm-hmm.
saying, there's a difference when it's in religion. Religion, you do it for the applause.
The
You do
applause.
it for the
Yes.
accolades. You do it to
Mm-hmm.
appease man. You're not serving God in that era when you're saying, I don't want to let my pastor down. I don't want to let pastor wife down. I don't want to let evangelist down.
But you're
If
letting your spouse down.
and exactly, and if you have those conversations ahead of time, if you know something come up and you're not gonna be able, like I think the first Sunday, like I had an appointment that I clashed with the day that I had to minister. I reach out to you, right?
Mm-hmm,
And you
mm-hmm.
understand.
That's right.
We're human, right? What I always say is have those communication. Don't
Mm-hmm.
let the day come and the appointed time come. They're looking for you, and now you're getting upset. See, no, I'm letting them down, and you're beating on your spouse.
Right.
No,
Mm-mm.
use wisdom. The same tactic you use on your job when you're not gonna show up, right? Or you're
Mm-hmm,
not able to
mm-hmm.
show up. Make sure you got someone there to back you
To
up when you're
back you
out.
up.
We are saying using that. Don't OD and church duties, religious duties, because even if you OD that religious duties, right? You should be home praying. What time are you going to be able to set your house in order? Because you need to pray in the morning before you get out of bed,
Mm-hmm,
right? Throughout the
mm-hmm,
day, we recommend that, but also before you go to bed, and your
mm-hmm.
family at home must hear you pray. I
Must.
would say, well,
It's a
my secret
must.
place is in my closet. That is good. I have secret place too. But your family, if you're gonna be a steward of God, right? And you're saying that you want your house to be in order with God,
Mhm.
right? Your family must be able to emulate you and not the world. You
That's
must be
true.
able to demonstrate Christ-like behavior duties first in
Right.
the home, so they know that when you go to church, you will hear some people say, and I thought you were Christian. I mean, not strangers, but your
Right.
spouse, children, or your nieces, or your nephews, and you
Mm-hmm.
use a certain tone or a certain verbiage, and they look at you like, but I thought you were a Christian.
Right.
What I'm saying, they are watching you, and
Mm-hmm.
they're seeing how you overexert on duties in church with respect, with honor, and integrity, but at home,
You're raising Cain.
Heller. So
You
that's
know,
what we're saying, is to use
you have
wisdom.
to use wisdom.
Have to use wisdom and have this conversation to find a balance. It takes balance in order to make this work. You can't say, well, my husband want me home 4 Sundays. There's 4 Sundays in the month. Come on now.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes five.
Sometimes five, right? The men Sundays, normally we give them the fifth Sunday, right?
You know what?
Right?
You know what, Evangelist Nikki. Before we go any further, you touched on something that is very important, right? You said when you have a calling. Now, I got a question. I saw a question that says, "What if you're called to ministry but your spouse is not?" And if you feel like you're called to ministry but your spouse d- does not is not, you can focus on leading your spouse and family to pursuing your calling, right? Listen, you can lead your family while you're pursuing your call. They're not exempt from your call. When you are called, your whole family's included, especially if you're married. If you're single, it's different, right? But when you're married and the call of God is on your life, your whole family is involved. I'm in a Facebook group and someone said that the husband and wife they serve in a church, and her the child is of age, brought their girlfriend in or boyfriend in, and they slept over, and so their pastor punished the parents, had the parents to step down from their church duties because of the sin of the children's sin. So I'm like, how is the parent going to suffer for the children? So when you are called to ministry, your entire family is in the spotlight. That's why your family is before ministry, because you have to know how to make sure you're protecting and preserving your family. So when things happen, I get a barrage of inbox questions when it concerns people in leadership and their children is not in the kingdom anymore. What should they do? Should they disown their kid? I'm like, huh? What? No. Listen, listen.
Pray
Especially
for
if you,
them.
especially if your children are adults, while they're under your roof, then you can have a say as to what they do. But once they're outside of your home, then it's and even if they're inside your home and they're adults, they're adults. Listen, they have to give account to God for themselves. So when we talk about, if you're called to ministry but your spouse is not, focus on leading your spouse to Christ. Focus on leading your family. Focus on preserving and protecting your family while you're pursuing the call to God. Listen, and I know a person's gonna say, well, God said, deny self or for, let this. Your family is important because how are you going to be saving the world and your family is lost?
Right.
Hmm? Tell me. Let me tell you something. It amazes me sometimes. Like my husband had to preach on Sunday, on yesterday, and all week he was just preparing, and because I know better, I did not disturb him. At one point I'm like, you gonna eat something? I knew he was fasting, but I just wanted to pick at him. He's like, no, I'm not. I was like, okay, no problem. I had to try to give him some little trouble. But when you have a spouse, both spouses understand ministry, it's beautiful. If they don't, then you teach them. You let
Yes.
them know, babe, I have to minister such and such. I'm gonna take some time away by myself. Now, I'm not saying you put your husband to the side or your wife to the side. You involve them in it. If they're young in Christ or young in whatever religion that you are, and you have to, if you're imam and you have to bring the word on whatever day you go to the mosque or the synagogue, whatever, you have to involve them, right? Let them become a part. They will feel better. While you're pursuing your call, you've got to lead your family. You don't want your family to be lost while you're out there saving, going into the hedges and highway and compelling men to come, but your spouse isn't there. Let me tell you something. We have to make sure that we are not putting our spouses or our family on the back burner when it comes to the duties of the church. And when you hear us keep emphasizing the duties, not God, right? And so we have to make sure that we're preserving and protecting our family. Listen, you have to prioritize your family and marriage. You have to. You're going home by yourself. Evangelist Nikki said you don't want to be home with your wife having next or your husband and having a Netflix and chill night and the pastor calling you to pick up snack and you're gonna leave your spouse. Listen to me. Say, Pastor, I'm sorry. This the night my husband or my wife set aside for us to do something as a family. I apologize, but I'm not able to do it right now. No, 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 no. Don't ever feel like you had to put lead church leaders before your spouse. And anybody that's teaching that church leaders come before your spouse, they're in error. They are. I'm just gonna flat out say it. I know I'm gonna get some inboxes and persons to say, "Oh, you're teaching wrong." No, I'm not teaching wrong. Your spouse is first. Listen, even in the vows that you take, it said, "Forsaking all others." You did say that. I didn't make up the vows. Y'all put those in there, right? So be a good role model for your spouse. How you gonna do that by neglecting them and putting church duties before them? Listen, I want to appeal to those of you that your spouse is unsaved. I want you to understand that you have to prioritize your marriage. Someone said, what if he doesn't want to be involved? Then if he doesn't want to be involved, that's awesome. Then you're good. If he doesn't want to be involved in your ministry or the ministry or ministry period, that's good. But as long as he's not going to stop you, and as long as you're not going to put the ministry over what his needs or her needs, because everybody don't want to be involved in ministry, especially if they're shy and that's not them. If they don't want to be in ministry with you, then you can't force it on them. You still got to lead them. If they don't want to be involved, like Dr. Jackie Bonner said, what if they don't want to be involved? Fine. Listen, be so passionate about it that they will be like, oh my God, my wife or my husband is so passionate about this. I want to get involved. I want to get involved. Now, my husband likes the behind the scene. He'll be behind the scene pushing me. He's the wind beneath my wing, right? And sometimes I'm like, come on. He's like, listen, yes, Nashir is God, then family, then ministry, right? Is ministry, and I think ministry is probably fourth down the line. We tend to put ministry first. And I think it's because of the teaching and the culture that some persons are in, that they feel obligated now to put their spouse second and neglect their spouse for kingdom. Do you think God is pleased with that? No, he's not. God is not pleased. You cannot put your spouse to the side to say you're doing kingdom. No. Unless, like Dr. Jackie said, what if the spouse don't want to be involved? Then if they don't want to be involved, then you go for it. But if they want to be involved, involve them. Right? Involve them. Tell them, be excited about ministry, right? So that they will be excited to come and pursue, right? Let me tell you something. Consider you how you can use your spiritual gift to help your spouse. Consider using your calling to help your spouse to even come into their calling, because we're all called into the kingdom to work,
Yes.
to do something, each of us, not just the wife or the husband. And listen, when we say ministry, we're not just looking at leadership. We're not just looking at the fivefold. We're not just looking at ushers, whatever. Ministry is going out, outreach, right? What if they're too busy? Then if they're too busy, what are they busy doing? If they're busy with work, then you can't tell them not to work, because we need the income in the house, right? Can't tell them not to work. But what are they busy doing, Mr. Williams? Sir David Williams asked, what if they're busy, too busy? If they're too busy, then they're too busy, right? And nobody's busy 24/7, 365 or 366. There has to be some time, because if they're busy, what time do you get? So I just want to know, before I can give a full answer, what are they busy doing? Are they busy doing life, work, other ministries? What are they busy doing, right? And so a lot of times, like, I know I'm busy, but I definitely do not.
Y'all know how I feel about the word busy evangelist.
Right, right. Evangelist Nikki will tell you, busy, you got to make time. You got to make time. Go ahead, Evangelist Nikki.
Listen, the only one person I know is busy to and fro. We know who that is. That's not our friend. That's our
That's not our
enemy.
friend.
Right?
Hmm.
Satan is the only person I know that is busy to and fro, right? Seeking where
Whom
he
he
may,
may devour. Yep.
right? That's what he's busy doing. But us, we prioritize. We have 24 hours in the day. All of us get 24 hours in the day. Even working two jobs, you still have to find time to commute, time to eat, time to rest, time to call your loved one, time to have a conversation.
Hmm.
We have to be intentional. We cannot
Hmm.
OD work, just like how we might OD in church duties and then home front suffer. Because at the
Hmm.
end of the day, when ministry be ministering, it's going to go on without you
It's going to go on without you.
without you. But your
Hmm.
first issue is gonna be there. You gotta prioritize them,
Hmm.
right?
You know
And
what, Evangelist, someone in the comments said on Facebook, Nashir, she said, too many families suffer because we have the order incorrect.
yes,
And
and
the
we
order is
add under the
incorrect.
umbrella as busy. That
Hmm.
you're never too busy for the people that matters to you the most.
No,
Because if
no.
there's an emergency comes up, how you find that time? It's the same 24 hours in all the
Same
other days.
24. Yep.
But if there's an
Same 24.
emergency comes up, how do you find them time? A lot of time we operate from emergency status. We'll make time during emergency.
Hmm.
And we're
Hmm.
saying if we have those our conversation, we can prioritize a day off that you get. Because I know a lot of
Hmm.
us, even if we have second job and we work on our other days off and stuff, there is still time that even if it's a video, technology makes it so easy for us to stay connected, but we are more distant than ever.
Yep.
If you're at work and you have to be at work, and if your person have to be at church or whatever they're doing, we have to find a time where even if it's a 15 minutes video call, Zoom call, right? Whatever it is, to communicate with each other, to have those heart-to-heart conversation, right? Ask these hard questions, create and share values, create a
Yep.
calendar that we all
Yep.
can come in and we can see each other commitment, and there's a block that we can calendar ourselves. This is our time, block
This
it
is
off,
our time.
prioritize
Yep.
it, right?
Hmm.
So it's time with us setting boundaries and investing in our relationship the way we invest in ministry and invest in
Yes.
everything else. It's about intentional. If we keep saying that we're busy work, we change job all the time.
Hmm.
You don't know. Most of us leave jobs that we don't even remember the boss name, the co-worker names that we work with for years. But guess who names we still remember?
Our
The people them
spouses.
that's still home with us,
Hmm.
right? So we can't be in an era where we have so many tools at our disposal to be closer, and we're more further than ever.
Listen, Sir David, you have to watch last week episode. He said a lot of times spouses are left out, no intimacy. Listen, we delved into that last week, Sir David. So you have to go
Yeah.
back and catch the replay on Facebook. Go on my page and just scroll to last week's video. We spoke in length about that intimacy piece, right? So you have to do that. I want us to say this, Evangelist Nikki, and I love how you bring out the point about balancing. You have to have a balance and set healthy boundaries, right? So it is important to find that balance you have to find the balance between religious duty and family responsibilities, because so many times, like Nashir said, the families suffer because the order is not correct. We're going to fix that. That's not going to be, for those of you that are listening, for those of you who are watching the replay, you're going to find time. We're going to fix that. Oh, I don't have time for my spouse, but you make time to sit in church 4, 5, 6 hours on a Sunday. No, no. Something is off with that. You're going to church and you're not fixing, your spouse is not coming to church because they're an unbeliever, and you're not fixing dinner. You don't have anything prepped and ready for them. Listen, let me tell you something. I went to a funeral on Saturday, and I made sure my husband wasn't going. I made sure he had something to eat for the whole time that I was going. Plus, bought him something home. You've got to prioritize. You got to make sure you're taking care of the home front. Your house can't be burning down, and you say, "Oh, y'all figure it out. I'm going to church." You come back, you don't have no place to live. So home is just, listen. You got to prioritize. Listen, and we can't say that enough. You're prioritizing God and family. Listen, even the scripture important. Um, the scripture emphasizes the importance of prioritizing God's love and his commandment, but it also highlights the importance of loving and caring for your spouse and your family. Don't say anything about church duties. Lord help me tonight. Listen, I'm covered with the blood anyway, right? So listen, because it's Lady Nashir, I'm serious. You that point that you made is very valid. So many families suffer because the order
There's no
is incorrect.
boundaries,
There's
and we
no
don't
boundaries.
prioritize.
There's no balance. Well, we had a couple of, I think back in December, we had Surviving Being a PK, and we
Yeah.
had preachers' kids on there who was saying that how 11 o'clock at night, their father had to leave the house to take somebody to the hospital, had to get up out the bed. That's the role. And I know some of you might say, well, he signed up to be a pastor, not at 11 o'clock at night to take your sick family member to the hospital. What about calling the ambulance? Come on now. Come on. David said, there are times because of ministry, things are happening in the home and we don't see. Yes, because of ministry, things are happening in the home and we don't see it because we're in the clouds, not seeing what's going on.
And that's not being taken care of home, because if
And
you weren't prioritizing home, you should know what's happening in your house.
you should
You
know
should
what's
not
happening in
even
your house.
ask us to know what's going on in your house.
You
You know what
should.
I mean?
You should.
It should not be things falling apart and you coming like, the NYPD.
Mm,
What's happening? Where
hmm.
was I?
Right.
Ted, doing ministry and
Doing
not
ministry.
about taking care of family life. And I think Minister David, he also said it again, intimacy. People use church, as we speak last week, when you catch the replay, people use that as an avoidance issue,
Hmm.
right? To keep saying, oh, I got to do church to avoid your spouse because of
Hmm.
whatever unresolved issue. A lot of
Hmm.
time
Hmm.
we either overworked or we overdo church duties, so that leave little room for us to just come home, take a shower, and go to bed. And we keep saying we busy, we tired. You keep claiming those things, sweetie. That's what's gonna come your way. I'm not claiming I'm too busy because God gave me 24 to prioritize.
Hmm.
Okay,
And you know
so
what too? When we don't prioritize and when we're so busy with ministry, that's how the enemy comes in. And next thing you know, that's what was happening.
like
That's
he
what
said, the
happened with
house starts
Eve.
falling
You
apart,
know,
and you'll be the last to find out.
listen. Eve got um got bamboozled and hoodwinked by the enemy because Adam was distracted. Adam, this is they said, what was Adam doing when the enemy was speaking to Eve, right? So we don't want the enemy to come in. Listen, we don't want the scent of the strange man or woman to attack our spouses because we're so busy with church duties, or we have to be in church. We have to be here. Church is there. Church, and your house is falling apart. Listen, like Nashir said, a lot of individuals were taught wrong. That's why prayer for marriages is here to help debunk all of that stuff. Because listen, let me speak to the Christians because I am a Christian, right? Now, the divorce rate in the
Yep.
kingdom of God in the Christian community is higher than higher or not equal to the ones in the world. And it should not be so if we are children of the most high God and we're serving God and we're being obedient to him, how come our homes are falling apart? Because of wrong
The problem.
teaching. Wrong.
There's a
Listen, it's a huge issue. This is why the Lord put this ministry on my heart to do. And Evangelist Nikki came on board because she was passionate. We were passionate about, helping successful marriages, one family at a time, one couple at a time, to bring them into understanding. Say, listen, your husband is first. Your wife is first. We're prioritizing our spouse. We love God. And notice we're not saying God. We're saying the duties of the church. That's what's killing most homes. So listen, if you're so busy in busy doing being running around the world and your house is falling apart, your husband don't have clothes washed. Listen, with all that preaching and speaking in tongues and laying hands, you better make sure your home is in order. Your home is intact, right? Listen, as Evangelist Nikki said, it's only one person is busy going to and fro, and that's not us. Listen, we are home on the house. Yes, yes, Minister David or Sir David, I'm not sure your kingdom title, but marriage in itself is a ministry. Listen, I often
first.
say,
It's the first ministry.
and that's your first ministry. When you get married, you got to learn your spouse. It's listen, marriage will bring out the beast in you and let you know that you have not yet arrived, right? That thing that you've been suppressing and hiding, marriage brings out that monster in you. And you say, oh my God, I thought I was saved. I thought I was holy. Marriage will let you know how saved you are and how holy you are because you have to deal with your spouse. You have to submit one to another, not just the wife submitting to the husband, but submit yourselves one to another. Oh Lord, I think I just messed up some persons right there. But listen, we're out of time, but not out of things. We still got some. I have a couple more points that I want to bring out to help you prioritize your marriage. So we're going to come back again next week. Listen, these topics are just so. Listen, we're dealing with real life issues. I'm not here to teach you how to pray. You know how to do that. I'm here to help you with your marriage. It's called prayer for marriages. And we do pray for you, right? We do have seasons or sessions that we do pray, but we do have sessions where we teach. All right.
Yeah, we
So
give you the practical tools. Like
the
I said, these are things that we take for granted and we think it's going to fix itself. So
mm-hmm,
we just want to enlighten what you already know, but you're asking it the wrong way,
mm-hmm,
right? Or
mm-hmm,
you
mm-hmm,
beating down your spouse. What we're saying, be that change you wanted to see.
mm-hmm,
If you think your spouse is over exerting themselves on church duties, right? Are they spending too many times at work and said they're busy at work? Even when
mm-hmm,
they're off the clock, they still finding things to do at work. That's called an avoidance issue. And
mm-hmm,
we dealt with that. There's many, you can go back and catch those replay. We deal with those type of issues as well because they don't
mm-hmm.
just do it without a reason. And
No,
in order for us to understand what's happening, we have to have those hard
you
conversations.
have
We
to.
have
You
to have
have
those
to.
honest talk without we're not attacking our spouse and said, it's been a while, we don't have no intimacy, and you attacking it. You're not gonna get anywhere. But
No.
sit down and be honest with your spouse of how you're feeling when they're being so overexerting themselves and
Mm-hmm.
distancing, because eventually that's what's gonna happen. And
Yeah.
when we started overexerting on anything, we know it's cause imbalance, and
Mm-hmm.
we're trying to get you back in harmony. We're
Yes.
home first ministry, and you create, like we said, you could create calendars together to spend time together. Calendar it if you need to block that off. Set joint boundaries and things that you guys can do together, even if it's just a walk. 15 minutes, 30 minutes. There must be time that you guys come together to have those conversations. And it's not just about the bills, not just about work and church, but about each other.
Lady Millicent said, "What about a narcissistic husband? How do you handle that?" Lady, we did a Zoom session about narcissistic husband. You got to email us at marciabakerministries@gmail.com to get that session. I think we did I think it was like a 3 or 4 week session on
Yes.
that question that you had. So we didn't do it on Facebook or YouTube. We did it on the Zoom platform where we had a narcissist therapist, right? A therapist that deals with narcissistic behavior on, and he was very enlightening. So that's not just a 5 minute question that we can respond to in 5 minutes, because it's a lot with being a narcissist. All right. So we love you. We thank you for joining. And Lady Millicent, email us. All right. And we can put those sessions in your hand for a cost. All right. So listen, as I was stating, let me tell you something. We're not out of things to tell you. We're just out of time. All right. It's 7:50. You know, we're supposed to be off at 7:30. But it's okay. When it's good, we can go over a little bit. Let me tell you something. If you have not yet joined our Thursday night community, you're missing out. Oh my God, last week was incredible. This week, we're having a night of prayer and prophetic release. You want to come and join. We have a special guest, Prophet Romando Johnson will be on, and I have special guest intercessors will be on. Lady Carone, Lady Candace, Evangelist Audrey will be here. I have Prophetess Shaolin is going to be on. My God, listen, I have Evangelist Shelley that's going to be on. Myself is going to be on. You don't want to miss Thursday night. You want to get in on the Zoom platform. No, it will not be on Facebook or Zoom or YouTube. You've got to come into the Zoom room and join us there for a night of prayer and prophetic release. Listen, we love you. We thank you. Join us again next Monday at 7 p.m. when we're going to do part 3 on, are you putting religious duties before your spouse? Listen, listen, Lady Nashir, yes, last week was great. Thank you. See, I'm not just saying it because, it's the platform that the Lord gave me the vision of, and I have a team that works with me. Last week was awesome. You got to come on again this week. Listen, I want to say this too. The time has changed, right? So for those of you in the Caribbean, we're starting at 6 p.m. your time. And the information is on the flyer. Not 7 p.m. If you come 7 p.m., that means it's going to be 8. You're going to miss a whole hour of it. So we're starting 6 p.m. DST, your time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The time switch for us in the United States with some portions of the United States on over the weekend. So we're an hour ahead of you. So if you're in the Caribbean, some of you, it's 6:52, it's 7:52 for us now. So remember, Thursday night, 6 p.m. for those of you in the Caribbean, and 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here in the United States of America. We love you. We thank you. See you on Thursday night, but definitely see you back here next Monday as we give you some more tips on, are you putting religious duties before your spouse? We're going to be doing part 3. All right. On behalf of Evangelist Nikki and myself, we just want to say have an awesome rest of your evening. All right. God bless you. God bless you. Good night.
Bless